Hello, hello, Christy. Thank you for joining us today. You know what, Christy? You can't see the top of your head now. Can you just, yeah,
Is
there
that
we go.
better? Very
Yeah,
good.
much better. Okay, good to see you, Christy. Everybody, this is a former student, current student,
Hmm.
and really good friend now. So her name is
Mm.
Christy Ellingsworth, and she is a wonderful resource for all things cooking lower sodium. And boy, oh boy, when we get into the kitchen for soup, sodium can totally be off the charts. I've been noticing it a lot lately because my husband has high blood pressure and I've been making a ton of soups and he's really watching the sodium right now. And he's like, this is too salty. This is too salty. Like he can really taste a difference now. We'll
Mm.
talk about that in a second. But welcome. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me, Kitty. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good, good. So let's talk about the reduced sodium in a second with
Mhm.
relationship to soups. But can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and how you got into being sort of a lower sodium cooking expert?
Certainly. 20 years ago now, I was diagnosed with something called Meniere's disease. And Meniere's disease is an inner ear disorder. I call it a plague jokingly, and it's not contagious, and that's good because you don't want it. Basically, I have symptoms of deafness, vertigo. They call it oral fullness, so a deep pressure in my ear and humming. All of it's awful, but the one way that you can control some of these symptoms is through maintaining a low sodium diet. So at the age of 30, I was placed on a low sodium diet pretty much for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
Um, and I was home tending to my toddler and infant daughters and was an avid foodie. So I basically um, got working, got cooking. And additionally, we had good insurance, but they would not pay for me to see a registered dietitian to make this change. And back then, there was not a lot of specialty diet information. There were very few cookbooks. I would pack up my two daughters and go to the library every single week and check out books and read everything that I could. And I basically had to start cooking everything from scratch, from bread to soup. I mean, you name it. And within, I want to say just a few years, I had enough recipes and information that I launched a website called The Daily Dish. And over the years, over the course of 15 years, it has grown. It now offers 600 plus low sodium recipes for free. And I've written four different cookbooks. I definitely walk the walk. So the
Yeah,
good news is that the diet not just protects against Meniere's symptoms, but it's incredibly wonderful for things like hypertension and heart health and, reducing stroke risk, a whole infinite variety of things. So,
right. Yeah, so interesting because I've never met anybody else with Meniere's disease
good.
and um I didn't know much about it, to be honest. You know what, Christy, could you turn down the sound on your
Mhm.
computer just a tad? We're getting a little bit of feedback when you talk.
Is
And
that helpful?
yes, I think that might help. Okay, so your website is again called The Daily Dish, right?
The dailydish.us.
Okay, .us. All right, that's important because a lot of people do .com and then they don't find you. All right, I'll put a link to it under the post when we post this in the group. All right, so I'm so glad you have so much experience with this. So let's talk about um, reducing sodium with soup. What would be, in your opinion, the very most impactful thing that someone could do if they were concerned about the amount of sodium in the soups that they are making, like the homemade soups?
I would advise people to either purchase low sodium broth, be it chicken, vegetable, beef, whatever you're using, or to consider making their own. I know all of us are, under time crunch. So, the realistically, a lot of us are not making broth, myself included, on a daily basis. But what I often do is actually just use water, plain water, and then add flavorings. If you're not on a strict low sodium diet like I am, feel free to add salt. I mean, the most important factor with cooking, especially when you're creating your own dishes, is taste. So my advice would be, if you want to create a soup and instead of substituting low sodium broth, use water and boost the flavor using, I would start with a small amount of salt and add in small increments tasting,
Right.
and then build a flavor profile using, your favorite herbs and spices. I always go to thyme, oregano is a real favorite, or basil, depending, fresh herbs. I often put in tomato paste, or you can use low sodium vegetable juices. I know that V8 makes them. Trader Joe's used to, and they recently stopped making it, and people have been up in arms.
Oh, no. Because
Yeah.
like tomato juice and V8 and stuff are super salty. They taste
Yeah,
very
but
salty.
yeah, the low sodium varieties would definitely be what I would suggest. Or
Yeah.
additionally, what I use is salt-free beans, salt-free products. But again, if you're not on a strict salt-free diet, feel free to use diced tomatoes. They're per serving, it's still low sodium. It's 140 milligrams or less. And that all of it will add oomph. Another
Yeah.
thing that I use is no salt seasoning, or if you're really looking for a
Bring
good
that
one.
back.
Oh yeah. So
Bring
I
that
got
back.
this
What
at
was
Kirk. This is Kirkland no salt seasoning. I got this at Costco. It was, you get a ton. It was, if I'm
organic,
thinking
no
correctly,
salt
it was
seasoning.
like
Okay.
maybe $7.99. If you're looking for the Rolls Royce of salt-free seasonings,
Yeah.
look no further. Okay. This is Benson's Table Tasty. It looks like this. So it's kind of powdery. It is a mix of different dried seasonings, as well as a yeast extract, which gives so much salty taste. Another thing I often use is, it's kind of hard to see with the jar, but this is nutritional yeast.
Yeah.
And I buy it in huge bags like this.
Tell everybody what nutritional yeast is.
So nutritional yeast is a type of inactive yeast. It is not the yeast you use to rise, leaven bread. It looks like this. So it's like little flakes. It has an incredibly aromatic smell and flavor. It tastes a lot like kind of cheesy, nutty, and it's extremely low sodium, and it has all these beneficial properties. It has a lot of B12, and B6. So I was a vegan for like 3.5 years, a strict vegan, because I was trying to heal myself. And I, in all honesty, when you have to live low sodium, you're already so restricted. It's,
Yeah.
and I'm no longer a vegan. I do cook a lot of vegan food still. But it is a great way to get B vitamins into your diet when you're not eating meat. So
yes. Yeah, it's recommended for vegans and vegetarians to use that. Yeah. So the other one was called Benson's Table Tasty. Did you buy that online?
Yes. So Benson's, it's their website is bensonsgourmetseasoning.com.
Okay.
Benson's actually sells, so if you have like a Prime, Amazon Prime membership, you can buy it there and get free shipping too. It's not cheap. So you can buy a small shaker for, a reasonable amount. I buy it. You can tell
that's institution sized.
This is 2 pounds. And
so how do you use that, Christy?
I use this, Kitty, instead of salt. And my family, who can eat Doritos and all of the delicious processed food you shouldn't be gorging on, but they can eat anything normal. They swear by this. So the first time I tried this, I had to keep looking at the label over and over to assure myself that there was no salt, because it has such an intensely salty, yummy flavor. And it is amazing on things like any savory food that really gets the best oomph from salt. Like imagine a hard-boiled egg,
Mhm.
and how kind of bland it is. Or even
Yes.
when I'm baking bread, I can add that, and it really, just adds that kind of missing element.
So, and that you said had autolyzed yeast or added
It
to it?
has it is a combination. It says all natural spice blend is a unique blend of 13 different vegetables, herbs, and spices. So they're all like dried and processed. Um, Use with any raw or cooked food where salt flavor is desired. Try on boiled or baked potatoes, popcorn, eggs, corn on the cob, tomatoes, salad soups. It's great in salad dressings. So I make all
Oh,
of my
okay.
own
That's
salad dressings.
yes. Yeah.
And I've used it in, I actually have talked about it in my cookbooks too, and on my website, just because it is such a,
I'll check that out. I've never had
yeah,
that before.
your
That would be,
husband may really,
yeah,
it may make a huge difference for
huge
him.
difference for him. Yeah, yeah, because he's, a little bummed. He liked his salty stuff and he's doing well. But
Good.
anyway, let's get back to the soup. So
Yeah.
thank you for those Bensons and also just mentioning nutritional yeast because that is always a good one. And a lot of people probably haven't tried that. So you're saying, so back to my question, which was what was the most impactful thing to do? And you mentioned the broth. Any other
Yeah.
broth tips?
I would say do what is first and foremost. I am a huge advocate of practicality and
Yeah.
affordability in the kitchen. So do not, I mean, although I say, oh, please spend a little money if you want a salt-free seasoning, I would never, ever put that kind of hurdle in somebody's path,
Right.
to making your own food. So choose things within your budget. If you have an ample budget, you can buy broth, just buy low sodium broth and make it convenient for yourself. An affordable way to do that, if you have, if you have limited space or money, get bouillon cubes. You can get them with like even no salt added now. They have concentrates. So those are affordable options. Just I would wholeheartedly recommend go low sodium, like
Yeah.
always
Just
opt for
always
that.
get the low sodium ingredients for your lower sodium soup. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems obvious, but still worth mentioning because some people aren't used to buying things that are salt-free or low sodium. Can you address a difference between reduced sodium, low sodium, and salt-free? Because
Yeah, it's
they're different.
confusing. It's super confusing with these commercial products. So
Mhm.
a low sodium product contains 140 milligrams of sodium per serving or less. Reduced sodium, lower sodium, these are tricks that manufacturers use to prompt people to think that they're making a much healthier choice. And in some, legitimately, some ways they are. They can still contain hundreds of milligrams of sodium per serving. So it's very important to look at the nutrition facts on the back of each package and really confirm.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that certain things that say reduced sodium, they say contains 1/3 less sodium than the original. So it's a little savings, but it's not like a low sodium product.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
And then
you know,
salt-free is what exactly? Because I think your beans were
oh
salt-free.
yeah.
Doesn't
So
have any added, same as no salt added.
absolutely. So these beans contain, they have 3.5 servings per can, 10 milligrams per serving. So it's just black beans. I mean, another really good thing, Kitty, is if you either, a lot of people, if you're shopping someplace and you don't have low sodium options or salt free, just get, if you want to get canned beans, just rinse them. Just
Yeah.
rinse them because you
I
rinse a lot of
mentioned
the
that
salt
today.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I mentioned that today when we were talking about beans for the bean
Yeah.
soup day, because the studies show it's like up to 40% you can rinse off of canned vegetables, which is a lot,
Yeah.
if you have no other choice,
Yeah.
so. And
Yeah.
I think it's just
Absolutely.
a smart habit to get into for all canned veggies,
Yeah.
unless you really need that, the liquid that comes in the can, sometimes you might want that, but most of the time people don't. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. So what next should we discuss for lower sodium soup making? What might be another tip for people?
So I think soup, stews, chilies, these kinds of meals, especially if if you're going to be cooking all of these things, you can do yourself a huge savings as well as sodium savings by opting for things like frozen vegetables.
Yeah.
It's so much cheaper. Texturally, they're going into a soup, stew, chili, whatever you're making, you're not going to sense any difference. You get the convenience of, you can get everything from chopped onions to bell
Oh,
peppers, all sorts of veggies, and it is such a way to amp up your servings of vegetables.
mhm.
If you're looking for an easy way and you don't have time, get a soup recipe, throw everything into the slow cooker before you go to work or whatever, set it, and you'll come home, your house will smell just like amazing,
Yeah.
and you'll have this nutritious meal that will just be nourishing you from the inside out.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've written a couple slow cooker cookbooks myself, and I use mine a lot. I just used it yesterday,
Yeah.
2 days ago. But I think it's one of those things that a lot of people just sort of like forgot that's in their closet. But drag that puppy out and leave it on the counter,
Seriously.
especially in the winter. I mean, I use mine year round, but especially in the winter. If you
Yeah.
have it out, you'll see it and you'll go, oh yeah, I need to make soup this week. And so what are your ideas for making your own homemade broth? What would be the best idea for that? Like the vegetables you would use. You did mention that you just use water but then how do you make it?
So if I were creating my own broth, and I'm a big composter too, so it really depends upon your time and inclination. We save everything. I have chickens. So what I do is I often will keep a stainless bowl. I
Mhm.
put scraps in there. You can do that, or you can add fresh. I take, whole cloves of garlic and crush them. I'll put them into a pot with some water, chopped onion, chopped celery, chopped carrots, any herbs that you enjoy. And you don't have to have fresh herbs. You can save fresh herbs for garnish, or, a different season if you don't have them.
I
But just,
actually freeze fresh herbs
it's so smart. It's a great thing
because
to do.
we're in Maine and it's a short season and
Oh
people
yeah.
are like, oh, my fresh basil. And they're out there in November. I'm like, I haven't seen fresh basil in 6 weeks. So mine gets frozen and then it turns kind of black and then
Oh
it's not
yeah.
attractive, but you can still cook with it.
Oh yeah, it's so funny, Kitty, because literally two minutes before I got on the Zoom, I went to go and harvest some of my cilantro, and then I opened the door and I go, "Oh yeah," because it's covered with snow, But
Of course it is.
I mean,
Same with my rosemary.
it's, and I was like, hello, duh, But it's so smart. If you do garden, just process that, and you can freeze it in ice cube trays,
Yes.
and I know a lot of places too. I think Trader Joe's, if you have one near you, does this. Whole Foods, which I love for certain things, but I don't go there a lot because it's so pricey. But even like most supermarket chains sell frozen herbs. So,
Yeah, or the freeze dried herbs that are
mhm,
right in the produce section by the
mhm,
fresh herbs. They're in
mhm.
these little cups. I can't remember the brand name, but I have a few of those too.
Yeah.
Um, and so when you said you use scraps, because what are your scraps like? Your vegetable, are you saying like the end of your celery stalk? You just keep that and you use that for your broth
I usually, because I'm cooking,
seeds?
I'm cooking for also for my family. So we have, usually both of our young adult daughters and their boyfriends often eat here too. And then my husband and myself. Yeah. So if I were cooking just for myself, the scraps are even better. I end up pulling things out of the fridge usually, but it is a way to maximize what you have. and it would be the scraps I'm talking about, or you can use everything from peelings if you were peeling things, because all of that, if you're not consuming it, I mean, it's great to consume in some way because you do still get B vitamins from those scraps as well as
Mhm.
flavor.
Mhm.
But ends of celery, all of that. I wouldn't put in like onion paper or anything,
Yeah,
but
yeah, right.
yeah.
Not the skin of the onion, but yeah.
No.
Yeah, I keep a bag of that in my freezer. Is that what you do?
Um, we go
You
through
don't
so
need,
much. No.
I keep it in my freezer so when I make broth,
Yeah.
so when I roast a chicken, and I always make my husband pull the chicken off. I'm like, pull off all the meat, that's your job. And then I boil it down, I
Yeah.
simmer it down and I throw in that bag of scraps that I've collected over a period of a few weeks.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's how you do it too.
That's really smart. Freezing it is even smarter. And I love the fact that you talk about, having a chicken and boiling the bones, because if you're under a time crunch, the best thing you can do is go to Costco, go to Hannaford, go to your local grocery, get a rotisserie chicken, pop that puppy in the pot and just let it boil until it's
Yeah.
literally disintegrating. Oops.
Yeah.
And go through the bones, and
Yeah.
it's,
Right.
just discard the skin, of course. And
Yeah. Now, some of those rotisserie chickens are salty though.
yeah,
You'd have
very,
to
very
put a
much
ton
so.
of water to sort of, you know,
Dilute it.
dilute it a bit. Yeah. All right, let's get wrapping up. So what would be your final tip for someone? You had mentioned alternate types of thickeners or ingredients. I think you mentioned before we turned on the recording, like a
Mhm.
coconut milk. What was the point
Oh,
about that?
so another thing you can make so easily are your own curries or
Mhm.
soups with even more flavor. I love using coconut milk, and I make a lot of soups, a lot of curries. You can make, my daughter just got back from Thailand and we were talking about, and she's actually at SMCC now for culinary school. So we were talking about like the Thai flavor profile. So you could have lime juice and coconut, and um, you can use chili paste certainly, or you can substitute your own if you're in my situation and you can't amp up sodium. But any ingredients that you have or have on hand, you can build a flavor profile, lowering the sodium. You may need to, as you're cooking, you need to taste. As I'm developing recipes, a big thing is balancing. So you may need to add a little bit of acidity, so a little bit of lime juice or a flavored vinegar, or
Yeah,
that kind of thing, and then balance it with a tiny bit of sweetness. So anything from just sugar to agave nectar or even maple syrup, depending upon if you're making like a butternut squash soup.
right.
Because you really, just because you can't eat salt anymore, you're not supposed to, doesn't mean your body doesn't miss it.
Yeah,
And um, you
right.
need you need to fill that void with flavor.
Yeah. So don't just take out and then not make up for it.
No,
'Cause
no,
that's just sad. That's sad food.
it is. Who's going to want to be healthy? You'll just be like, this isn't, this is horrible,
Yeah, I can't do it. My life lacks flavor.
Yeah,
It would be hard for me. I don't think I eat a super salty diet by any means, but I do like salt, and
yeah.
it's natural to like
It
it.
is totally. I mean, I've been on this wacky diet for 20 years and I love salt, but the difference is once you start reducing the amount of salt that your body is accustomed to, your palate changes. So your husband's reaction to like, oh, this is so salty,
Yeah,
it's very normal, because the food that we eat here by far is very salted heavily.
yeah. Over salted, especially
Yeah.
restaurant food. Anytime we eat at a restaurant, we're both like gulping water all night long. Getting up in the middle of the night to drink water. It's like just because I ate out, I hardly
Yeah.
eat out at all anymore, but when I do, that happens invariably.
Yeah. Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that as a routine. So, all right, my dear. Well, thank you so much for your information. And again, everybody, that is The Daily Dish or just Daily Dish?
The Daily Dish, so
The
3 words,
Daily
but
Dish.
together, thedailydish.us.
All right, so if you need more lower sodium ideas or low sodium recipes, that's where you go. And thank you so much, Christy, for joining us today. I think this was really fun and people like to hear from people besides me. So I'll stop the recording and we'll see you guys later.
Thank you. Bye now.